Good evening, everyone. This is Alex Oder.
And this is Claire Cahill.
Tonight is Friday, January 24th. The time is now 6:30 p.m. Welcome to the 14th show of Phillipian Live, coming to you live from the studio. This week on the show,
we're covering Learning in the World programs. Ava Ratcliffe, class of 21, is currently spending her upper year in Zaragoza, Spain, so we checked in to see how she's doing. Stay tuned for a look at school year abroad.
Also, we're celebrating 100 years of women's suffrage with the 19th Amendment anniversary. Faculty and students reflected on what it means to have the right to vote. Keep watching to see how Andover's stance on suffrage has changed over the years.
Last Monday, we also celebrated Andover's 30th year recognizing Martin Luther King Jr. Day with an ASM presentation from poet and activist Nikki Giovanni and a handful of student-led workshops. Discussing topics from climate change to LGBTQ+ rights, stay tuned to get a look at how Andover celebrates equality. And last but not least, we're so excited to have Igor Barakayev and Keishi Kimura, class of 20, live on the show to show us some of their original EDM beats.
Have you ever wanted to spend time in a totally different country, school, and culture? The Tang Institute at Andover offers students opportunities to do so through programs led by Andover faculty and other affiliate programs such as School Year Abroad. This week, live reporters Cheryl Tugade and Alina Choi learn more about these Learning in the World programs and what the experience is like.
Thanks, Alex. To learn more about School Year Abroad, we asked the director of the program, Ms. Munoz Fernandez, on what she thinks makes this program so important.
It's incredible to be able to live for a full year with a host family that you have no idea who these people are, but they adapt to you, you adapt to them, and you learn so much.
Aside from spending 1 year...
And there are things about somebody else's culture that there's no way of knowing unless you live with them. And there are little things. Do they eat every day at the same time? Like, are you supposed to not wear shoes in your house, you know? Or like, you're not supposed to sit by the window if the wind is blowing because it could be like bad spirits are coming your way. And you're like, why? And then you start like digging. The reasoning behind it is fascinating. You know, it opens a whole world of possibilities.
Aside from spending 1 year abroad, SYA also offers students the opportunity to spend a summer abroad. One student, Hazel Code 21, spent one summer in France. Wow, Alina, spending a year abroad seems really interesting, but I'd also be worried about everything I'd miss out on campus. For example, what about holding leadership positions?
Well, here's what Ms. Munoz Fernandez and Hazel had to say about that.
Actually, you would have even more leadership positions later on when you leave PA because you did a school year abroad, because it's incredible the skills that you will get.
So I honestly was really terrified going into it too, so I would say it's completely normal to be terrified. But once you get there, everyone else is going to be terrified with you, and that's like normal. And also your host family is going to be super awesome about welcoming you because they're volunteering to do this out of their own goodwill, and they just want to make you feel at home. And all the teachers there want to help you learn French and fall in love with France. So there's nothing to be scared about.
Another student, Kylie Lowe, class of 22, recounted how one of the toughest days during her trip to Ecuador ended up being a really cool experience. Here's her on getting sick in the Amazon rainforest.
One of the days in the Amazon, I got really sick with what they called jungle fever. So I had a fever and I was in bed, like throwing up, super pale for an entire day, and I was stuck in my cabin in the Amazon, super hot and humid, and it was terrible. But the people kept bringing me like different kinds of chicken noodle soup, which I cannot figure out the recipe, but it's so good. And the shaman actually came and performed a jungle ritual, which rid me of the evil spirit that was inside of me. It was some kind of evil spirit that rested inside of me, so they cleansed me of that. So it was bad, but it was also ended up being one of the coolest experiences.
We also spoke to Ava Radcliffe, class of 21, who is actually in Spain for the SYF program now, as we speak. She gave us a glimpse of what life is like during the program. Take a look.
Hi, my name is Ava Radcliffe. I am an upper here at Andover, and this year I'm doing School Year Abroad Spain in Zaragoza, Spain. So abroad is pretty similar to Andover. You know, it's founded by Andover, except for it's a lot smaller. We have about 60 kids in my class, but they all come from schools really similar to Andover.
Okay, now I'm going to school. It's about a 15-minute walk, but I think I'm going to take the train because it's a little shorter, and I'm running late. Now we're going to school.
Probably the hardest part of SYA is that when they say full immersion, you know, it's actually full immersion. You're speaking Spanish most, if not all of the time. So, for instance, last week I had strep throat. I had to go to the doctor and explain how I was feeling and what was wrong, totally in Spanish, and I couldn't do it in English because he didn't understand English. But the plus side to that is now I feel confident communicating in most scenarios, and yeah, I think my Spanish has really improved. So far I'm really liking the program. I think my favorite part has to be the ability to travel. Starting in November or December, you have the ability to, on the weekends, go to different cities close to Zaragoza, where we are. And one of my favorite parts is I can learn something, you know, in my art class about a certain piece of art, and then I can go see it in a city that next weekend. In December, I went to Tarragona, which is a small city in Catalonia, with one of my friends for the weekend. And we saw a bunch of really cool Roman ruins, the Roman Forum, the Roman Circus, and then it was really unusually warm for the season there, so we went down to the beach and we got some pizza and we watched the sunset, and that was definitely a great memory. And yeah, thank you so much.
Cheryl Tugade and Alina Choi reporting.
To celebrate the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, Student and Adult Advisory Boards for the Brace Center for Gender Studies organized a presentation at all-school meeting last Friday. Here is live reporter Nina Chupengart with the story.
Thank you. The 19th Amendment, passed in 1920, prohibits the state and federal governments from denying the right to vote on the basis of sex. Focused mainly on the 19th century women's suffrage movement in the United States. Last Friday's ASM provided students and faculty with a brief history of women's suffrage around the world.
When the amendment was first passed, it was like a lot of white women, and you usually wouldn't like see the women of color like on the center stage of those protests. And I feel like that was very like interesting to see that they were showing different perspectives rather than like the normal narrative.
I knew about it, and I knew it gave the women the right to vote, but I didn't really know the history behind it. I thought it was really interesting just to find out about it.
Midori Ishizuka, teaching fellow in history and social science, spoke alongside students and other faculty members at the ASM.
I was asked.
She describes how she was greatly inspired by the ASM and the collaborative effort by members of the History Department and Brace Center to put it together.
I was asked to do that by Dr. Vidal, and she inspires me as a woman who is, as all the women in the department and in the Brace Center do, they all inspire me. And I think hearing that this was an opportunity was inspiring, and that I would be entrusted with speaking in front of everybody. And just to give credit where credit is due, the work that was required to make that ASM happen. I was just someone who volunteered to speak the words that were written by history colleagues and then add a little bit, but it really was the work of everybody. So I think Dr. Vidal inspired me to do it by asking me, and my colleagues inspired me by just being amazing, smart, powerful women.
Saida Ibragimova, 22, was part of a computer science project featured at the ASM. In partnership with the Brace Center, the project focused on educating students about female heads of state through interactive technology. She hopes that the project will be on display in the basement of the library.
So for the data project, what we did, we created a map, an interactive map, with a list of female heads of state per country. So if you click on any country you're interested in, you'll see a list of female heads of state in the past, their biographies, their photographs, the descriptions of their job, their life. I hope it will be displayed in the basement, right next to Nest. You know, there is a big screen. Yeah, and you will have a chance to interact with the map.
The presentation was meant to launch the Brace Center 100 Ways to Celebrate the 100th Anniversary of the 19th Amendment Project. The project will include several events over the course of 2020 in celebration of the ratification of the 19th Amendment and to connect students to the history of the Abbott Academy through their alumni. Emma Slybeck, class of 20, member of the Brace Center Student Advisory Board, was responsible for the original idea behind the project. She hopes that the project will inform and inspire Andover students to learn more about the history of women's suffrage and feel inspired to actively support this cause.
So the 90th Amendment celebration is nowhere near over, actually. We have 97 more moments to go. And it really started, I think, last spring when I was thinking about, because Dr. Vidal had told the Brace Board about this ASM and the 19th Amendment ASM and the project that was being done on like what were Abbott women like thinking about and talking about. And I was thinking about this and like how else we were going to like acknowledge this moment on campus, and I was like, well, what if we did a moment for every year that the 19th Amendment has been an amendment? So it's 100 years of the 19th Amendment, so that means 100 moments honoring the legacy of the 19th Amendment and highlighting places where the 19th Amendment failed and complicating that narrative, as they talked about in ASM as well, and continuing to do work that like lives in the same like light as the 19th Amendment, like kind of that goal. And this is one of the things I love about Dr. Vidal. She was immediately like very supportive. She was like, yes, let's do it. It sounds awesome. And so then it really became like coming up with these 100 moments and then working on each of them. So that's kind of where I've been the most involved.
So many of our students show care and show activism, but I think it's more than just what rally are you going to go to, you know, which article are you going to write every so often. It's how are you going to incorporate these things into your daily life, and how are you going to keep educating yourself to make sure that you have a say in the narrative in the future.
It's not just about the 19th Amendment. It's about like social justice and activism as a whole, and that's kind of where I think this is trying to go, but I think it's also really calling attention to, because this is a moment, this is a special moment with the 19th Amendment, to all of the work that so many different people have done throughout history to like make us where we are now that we don't even necessarily acknowledge.
Nina Schubengart reporting.
This past Monday, the Andover community celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Day through an all-school meeting and various grade-specific programming. Uppers and seniors participated in student-led workshops exploring topics ranging from the LGBTQ+ community to climate change, all centered around the theme of justice. Here are live reporters Jake Jordan and Remy D. St. Phal with the story.
Thanks, Alex. Choosing from a diverse array of options, upperclassmen were placed in various workshops hosted by their fellow peers. The workshops provided a platform for learning and open discussion, allowing for students to develop deeper understandings of certain facts of identity and the systems of oppression that exist in today's society. Skylar Zhu hosted a workshop titled Stronger Together, a history of coalition in civil rights movement.
So we kind of have had both. We had lectures and we also had discussions. We talked about the process of racialization, including racial triangulation, and we also used LA riots as an event, as an example of examining the racial reality in America, which is not binary, which is multiracial. So we actually split everyone into 3 groups and gave them documents to read and had them share what each document was about to the rest of the larger group.
While Zhu's workshop mainly focused on examining past collaborative efforts between minority groups, Peter Wu, 22, hosted a workshop on how to get along with others in this present day. Titled Culture and Bridge Building, Wu hopes that his workshops gave students the opportunity to reflect on the influence society had on their identities.
We presented the students with a Milton Bennett model, which is a spectrum of concepts that has, it's a cultural model the students will learn about, okay? And then we did a little bit of an activity, which is called the culture spectrum walk. So, for example, one of the topics we gave was confrontation. And if you have a high level of confrontation, say, you go to a restaurant and you get the wrong plate of food and you would go up to the waiter and ask for a new one, that means you have a high level of confrontation. And that means you would go to one side of the room, whereas people who have low level confrontation will go to the other side. And then we have a discussion about, why that is, based on our background. Why do we have different levels of confrontation?
A member of the Brace Student Board, Emma Slavek, class of 20, was involved with 2 workshops titled Deconstructing Rape Myths and From Lone Ranger to Elizabeth Warren, Indigenous Misrepresentations and Settler Colonialism. She chose on these topics because she believes that today, at Andover especially, people are not adequately informed about these important issues.
In the second workshop on settler colonialism and misrepresentation, was really inspired by 2 main people. So Dr. Kimberly Tallbear and Dr. Adrienne Keene, who are both just amazing, badass Indigenous feminists. And I was introduced to both of them last year. Their work has changed my life. It has changed the way I kind of even interact with the world, and I really wanted to share this narrative because we do not talk about Indigenous issues enough, and we don't talk about misrepresentation, or we don't talk about land acknowledgements, and I don't think people really know what the term settler colonialism really is, and how much it affects Indigenous people today.
Maya Skolnick, class of 21, had similar reasons for her choice of topic for her MLK Day workshop.
Yeah, so I'm also running one about prison and mass incarceration. I think that one directly challenges, just societal norms, and especially it's also another topic that we don't talk about at Andover that much. I think that is a big one for justice this year, especially on MLK Day, especially with our speaker today.
Flavia Vidal explains that all faculty were expected to attend the all-school meeting in one of the workshops.
So all adults are expected to engage with the day in some way. So people are expected to go to the all-school meeting and to participate in one workshop. There were a few workshops done specifically for adults. A lot of us, of course, work with students in the workshops that they put together. So a lot of us are busy with that as well.
Prior to the workshops, Nikki Giovanni, an American poet and activist, delivered a speech in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. to the Andover community during the all-school meeting.
Tying anecdotes of her personal life to the theme of justice, Giovanni expressed her opinions on many controversial topics such as suicide, adoption, and divorce. Students weigh in.
I loved her imagery with the bats and then the umbilical cord. I think it's a really good message. You don't have to change the world. There's so many of us that are just bats and mice, but we still also contribute, We take the umbilical cord away from the farm.
I know a lot of people, me as well, that are going through, hard times in winter. It's cold, a lot of studies, a lot of personal emotional stuff, and I really think that her speech motivated me to, continue this Andover journey.
I think it was definitely a very different ASM than we usually have. I think I enjoyed how genuine she was, and I was talking to Em Martin about how I used to work at a senior center, and it sort of felt like talking to some of the people there who just sort of it's really interesting to see how people who have lived through very different things than I've lived through sort of react to the world around them.
I really liked how she was able to resonate with a lot of people. I would say everyone. She was able to reach people in different ways and touch people like a grandmother would. And I think that was one of the things that was so magical or powerful about her speech, was that it was universal.
For more coverage of the ASM and MLK workshops, check out this week's paper and online at Phillipian.net. Jake Jordan,
Remy D. St. Phal,
reporting.
Next up, we are so excited to welcome Igor and Keishi. With their free time, the dynamic duo hang out down in the studio producing EDM beats. Let's take a listen. Now let's welcome Igor and Keishi to the studio. So,
hey guys.
Hi. So, did you guys take the electronic music class?
No, we haven't.
Actually, none of us took the course.
Yeah.
But you should take it.
Do you guys play any other sorts of instruments, or?
I play the guitar. I started when I was 10. I also play a bit of piano, but barely any. But that's almost it.
I play the cello for fun. I take lessons here, but I'm not that good at it.
How long have you been playing?
For around 3 years.
Awesome. When did you guys start getting into EDM?
So I started when I was in 7th or 8th grade. I think I was watching like a video of Avicii producing like a track, and he was one of my favorite artists. And I realized at that moment, I was like, oh, maybe I can produce music too. And that's when I opened up GarageBand, started playing around, and that's how I started.
Awesome.
It was different for me. I was inspired by Skrillex actually when he was in the hype wave. I was just curious how he makes beats, so I downloaded FL Studio, which I no longer use actually. And that's it. I was 13 and I just keep making music since then.
Awesome. So, how did you guys first start learning how to produce EDM music?
So I started off with GarageBand, which almost all of you guys have on your Macs. But then I transitioned to Logic Pro X, which is basically like an upgraded version of GarageBand, but it has a really similar structure, so it's really easy to transition into that. But then now, because of Eeyore's advice, I use Ableton Live, which is, well, I would think it's a superior software to Logic Pro. But what I would do is go on YouTube, look at instructional videos that go over sound synthesis, how to program drums, things like that, and I would try to replicate that, and that's how I kind of developed.
All right, awesome. Well, it was great to have you guys on the show. It was great to talk to you guys a bit. Yeah, I mean, have a great evening.
Thank you. You too.
This week in the paper, this week was issue number 29, volume CXLII, the Philippians' 15th full paper of the school year. In news, read about Salvador Gomez Colon, class of 21, who was invited to attend the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, where he spoke on a panel about forging a sustainable future. In commentary, Zana Kamar, class of 21, argues why India can never successfully reach secularism. In sports, read about boys swim and dive and how they set 2 new pool records in back-to-back competitions. Finally, in arts, learn about Ava Rycliffe, class of 21's experience in the SYA Spain program. You can also go to Phillipian.net to see a digital map under the SYA article.
As always, if you're interested in Philippian Live or the Philippian as a whole, come find us in the newsroom or visit our website to join. Anyone can sign up to be a writer for any section of the print paper or be a reporter for Philippian Live and go on air to present your segment. If you're more interested in video, graphics, or live production, we'd love your help as well. Go to Phillipian.net/join or email at for more information.
Right, well, we're halfway through the year. Hang in there, Andover.
Stay classy.